As you guys know, I play a lot of Demon Hunter. I've watched it kind of develop from alpha all the way up into 7.1, and now I have an opportunity to play it in 7.1.5 and talk about the class and the redesign. So ever since the class launched with Legion in August, it like did okay, but then it started phasing out, and the problem was that like Windwalker monks got buffed, Frost Death Knights got buffed, Pharaohs were good, Warriors were good at the start of the expansion. And rogues were also good at the start of the expansion, and it just never felt like Demon Hunters had something that was better than other melee classes, except for like damage, and then they eventually nerfed Demon Hunter damage, and just Demon Hunters weren't used because you could play other melee classes and do it just as good, if not better, most of the time. But now we're looking at 7.1.5, and we see a pretty significant redesign and changing of the talent placements, but also introducing a couple new PvP talents. And I want to go over those for you guys today and show you how that works, and also show you how far the class has come in this patch, because I really do think that this class has taken a step forward, and I think that Blizzard did a pretty solid job with this redesign. So we're going to go ahead and just jump into it. I want to talk about the very first talent tree first, because as you can see, Fellblade is in the first talent, like the very first talent tier. And this is really important because what you would have to do is choose between Fell Mastery or 2 damage talents, but now you can actually choose between 2 mobility talents or a damage talent. So this is like Fellblade is great for pretty much having to have that extra mobility, being able to dash towards a target and get even more mobility off than you normally have with your Vengeful Retreat, your 2 Fell Rushes, and all that stuff. And that's really, really useful. But most of the time I'm going to use Fell Mastery, but regardless, like there's 2 specs that I'm going to be explaining today, and I want to go over these talents first before I get into that. So as you can see, Fellblade's in the first talent tier, and this is a really healthy change because now you don't have to choose Fellblade, or you don't have to choose between Fellblade and Bloodlet and First Blood. So Chaos Cleave is now in the 3rd tier, which is a much better fit for it because you're choosing between 3 different styles of doing damage. Bloodlet offers the Throw Glaive Bleed, obviously. First Blood gives you that Blade Dance damage, and Chaos Cleave gives you that Cleave damage with Chaos Strike. So being able to choose between the 3 of these makes it a lot healthier, and it just makes a lot more sense because you're choosing between 3 damage abilities or mobility here, like which type of mobility you want, or just having more damage if you don't need that extra mobility. So just pretty solid stuff. There's a lot of different changes, guys, and I'm not trying to go over all of them because that'll be like a 30-minute video, so I just kind of want to keep it clean for you guys. But real quick, there's been just a couple changes. Like Nemesis got buffed by 5%, so now you can do 25% increased damage over 1 minute, which is really useful. Fell Eruption was buffed by like 100%. It's super, super good now. It does a lot of damage. I really don't expect it to stay that much damage because it's like seriously like 1,000,000+ damage when you use this instant cast ability. So pretty sick. And then the one thing I do want to talk about is Nether Walk, because Nether Walk is an ability that in previous patches, what it would do is it would be like an upgraded defensive if you were to take the talent. So it would actually replace Blur, and Blur is your main defensive. It has a 1-minute cooldown. It's like a mini evasion / shield wall mixed into one ability, and it was like what Demon Hunters use to survive. But now we have Nether Walk on a 2-minute cooldown that's separate, and you can take it as a talent, as an activation ability that's a 2-minute cooldown and makes you immune to all damage for 5 seconds and increases your movement speed by 100%. So if you can actually like go in arena, or like you can dodge out of mechanics and rage or whatever it is, but you can like go super far in and then just Nether Walk out if you ever get in any trouble, because it's only a 2-minute cooldown and you can rotate that with Blur, which is really interesting because if you're playing with a Paladin or Resto Druid, obviously they have Ironbark or Blessing of Protection or Sacrifice, so you could just rotate all of those cooldowns, and it's really hard to kill a Demon Hunter on this patch because of this being on a 2-minute cooldown. I think that this might need to be on a 3-minute cooldown. It seems more fair to be on a 3-minute cooldown because I think that on a 2-minute cooldown, rotating those defensive cooldowns effectively and coordinating that well will make Demon Hunters very, very, very difficult to kill. So just getting that out there. But this is a huge buff for Demon Hunters being able to survive, especially in Arena, because that was their biggest downfall. Now, or one of their biggest downfalls. The next one was consistency. Okay, so we're going to talk about the specs, because this is kind of pertaining to these next PvP talents that were completely new, these 2 right here. So I want to talk about them really quickly. and I want to talk about these specs that I'm playing. So in the beta, I always played something called like my burst spec. It was something that I don't know if I created, but I kind of just made it up for myself. And it's something that basically allows you to use all of your cooldowns at one time and do like an incredible amount of damage. Like you would most of the time kill somebody. And it would be like Nemesis, Chaos Blades, Metamorphosis, Fury of the Illidari, Blade Dance with First Blood, and then like Chaos Strikes after that, and they would be dead. Like there's no way to survive that. But that is actually being buffed, like this burst spec. And I think that Demon Hunters in general, based off of their class theme, should be a class that can do pretty solid sustained damage outside of demon form. But when they're in demon form, like you should have to run. I think that that's fair because you're not a class that has a bunch of control. You don't have any off healing. So I feel like the only thing that you can do is damage and like disruption with your stuns and your interrupts and your imprison. But now you have the opportunity to actually do consistent damage on top of the burst that you have with this new PvP talent called Demonic Origins. So what Demonic Origins does is it actually cuts your Metamorphosis cooldown in half from 4 minutes to 2 minutes, and then also reduces the duration in half, so it gives you a 15-second demon form, which is pretty fair. And then also the big catch is that while you're not in Metamorphosis, you have 10% increased damage added on as like a passive buff. So you can see it up here. Like I have just 10% increased damage, and this stacks with Solitude, which is 15% increased damage and attack speed. So as you can see, that's pretty useful, especially outside of demon form. I just have a 25% damage buff. Pretty sick. And also, you could be having your Nemesis outside of, like, that's 50% increased damage. Well, I know the math isn't calculated like that, but, you know, theoretically, it's around 50% damage that you could just have increased not in demon form. And when you're in demon form, you do a crazy amount of damage, and that requires enemy teams to CC you or run away from you. And I think that that's a healthy playstyle for the Demon Hunter. I think that that fills in that niche pretty well, and that's kind of how I want to see this spec be treated by other enemies. So when you see a Demon Hunter pop all their cooldowns, like you should have to CC them, stun them, run, pop defensives, whatever it is, because that's what a Demon Hunter offers to the team. Now, there is another spec, and this is the more interesting one. I actually don't have my full PvP talents on my Demon Hunter quite yet because I haven't played him in the last like 2 weeks, but there's a more consistent, a more like wearing you down type of spec, and I wanted to share that with you guys because I really do think that Demon Hunters, if this rework stays in, are going to be a tier 1 comp or a tier 1 class to be able to play in arena. They're very, very strong right now, and I'll show you that in the arenas in just a couple minutes. But what we're going to play here is we're going to play Fell Mastery, Demon Blades. We're going to change this to Bloodlet. And then we're going to keep Nether Walk. We're going to play Momentum, Master of the Glaive, and Chaos Blades for a little bit of extra burst. And then we're going to play Mana Rift, which is a brand new ability. And I would theoretically play Mana Break, but I don't have it right now. So sorry about that, but I can explain it real quick. But how this spec works is it's like along with your... It's along with, like, say you're playing with an Affliction Warlock, okay? Playing with an Affliction Warlock can be very, like, obviously you rot down a bunch of targets, or if you're playing with, like, a Feral Druid who does a lot of spread pressure, or you get the drift here, like an Elemental Shaman, spread pressure, whatever it is. This spec is about keeping your consistent damage up at all times. And then also, there's this new mechanic called Mana Rift. And what Mana Rift does is it's like a little 6-yard pool that... Here, I'll just show you. So I'm going to hit this Mana Rift button. It's an 8-second cooldown. You can put this little circle below them. And what it does is after a couple seconds, it actually explodes for 8% of his current... Or his normal... 8% of his maximum health. And then also takes away 8% of his mana. So as you can see, I'm draining his mana, and I can do this every 9 seconds based on your haste. But this is like a really cool way, because what you could do is you could have Affliction Warlock dotting everybody up, and you could be dotting everybody up with your Bloodlet and your Throw Glaive, and then also you could be draining the healer's mana as you're training him down, and eventually they're going to die, and that's like the dampening way to kill somebody. Like killing them with the dampening, like, you know, the mechanic that obviously ends games and reduces healing, and eventually somebody's going to die. And I think that that's a cool playstyle because you can choose between 2 different specs. And not only do you have Mana Rift that drains someone's health, but you also have Mana Break, which was actually buffed pretty heavily this patch. So it normally, before this patch, it just did like a set amount of damage and then increased based off of the amount of mana missing. But now it does a 15% of the target's total health static, and then that damage goes up based on how much mana they're actually missing. And it's only a 1-minute cooldown, whereas previous patch it was 1.5 minutes. So this is very, very, very strong. Like this with Mana Rift, if you combine it and you do all of this spread pressure and you get every target to say, I don't know, 40%, if you have them just hovering at 40% with all the dots you can put out, and then you have Mana Rift going on cooldown on a healer, and then their health, like, healers have to heal everybody, obviously. They're going to use a lot of mana. You're draining their mana at the same time. They get low, you mana break them, and then they die. And if they don't die, then it's up in a minute, and you can just kill them again soon. And you also have Demon Form and Chaos Blades for the burst anyways. So I think that Demon Hunters really have a lot coming for them at 7.1.5. This is a really big deal, especially since Imprison is now like base. You can actually just imprison them. You don't need the Talon anymore, and it's also on a 15-second cooldown in PvP. So that's a really big deal. And then also Rain from Above. If you were to choose to take that, you can actually Rain from Above out of stuns and stuff now. So it's like a better defensive than it was before. There's a lot of like hidden things and hidden like mastery type things that you're gonna have to learn as a Demon Hunter. But there's so many things that you can do with this class now that you couldn't do in the previous patch. And I'm going to definitely be covering this more in depth. But what we're going to do, guys, I know I've been talking for a while. We're going to jump into some arenas so you can see what it's like. Honestly, Demon Hunters are a lot harder to play now, but a lot more rewarding. And I want to jump in so you guys can see how Demon Hunters are kind of shaping up right now. And also keep in mind that this is PTR. Things can always change. And also damage numbers can be nerfed. I think that, honestly, the burst spec is a little bit overtuned right now. So just keep that in mind, but let's jump into the arenas. And that does sum it up for me today, guys. I hope you did enjoy. If you did, be sure to give a big thumbs up on this video, and you can also subscribe to my YouTube channel if you have not already. What I'm going to do for you guys is actually show you how the burst really works real quick before I go, and then we will be out of here. So as you can see, like what I'm going to do is I'm going to like imprison them, and then I'm going to Nemesis, and then I'm going to Metamorphosis, pop my Chaos Blades, Fury of the Illidari, and then Blade Dance. Okay, so Nemesis, or I was supposed to imprison him, so we'll just do that, okay? And then we're going to Metamorphosis, and then Chaos Blades, Fury of the Illidari, and then we're going to Blade Dance, and as you can see, he's already dead, basically. You know, he bubbled auto because that's like a cheat death now, but pretty crazy, right? So be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel, and I will see you all in the next one. Thanks for watching, guys.